This poll was released today, and it finds, this will not come as a surprise, that the partisan divide over the issue has gotten even worse. According to the Washington Post here, the percentage of Democrats who see climate change as an existential threat rose by 11 points to 95% over 7 years. Now, that seems contradiction to what I just said, 67%. But the 67% is overall. Democrats, who, for some reason, whether they're black, white, Asian, doesn't make any difference, are more tuned in to the science. So now 95% of Democrats see climate change as an existential threat. And that increase was driven partly by black Americans who are now more likely to say that the issue is very serious. Here's a quote from Dorothy Gustav. She's 39, she's black, and she lives in Brooklyn. This is what she said to the Washington Post. Quote, "I guess I worry about the future, and I worry about the effects that climate change will have on the planet overall. I'm confused as to why most people aren't worried," she said. And then she added, quote, "Mother Nature doesn't care about your excuses. Mother Nature will kill you. We need to start thinking about ways to fix that," end quote. Dorothy Gustav, who lives in Brooklyn. Meanwhile, here it comes. The share of Republicans, the Christian fascists who say, oh, climate change, I don't know. The ones who considered it a serious problem fell by 10 points. So now it's down to 39% of Republicans say it's a serious problem. Isn't that stunning? 95% of Democrats say this is really some bad shit. 39% of Republicans say the same thing. Christian fascists. And that Republican decline in the Washington Post ABC poll tracks with the findings of annual Gallup polls, in which Republican concerns about global warming also dropped after 2017, when the orange vomit took office as president. This is stunning. This is just stunning shit about Trump. See, Trump denied the existence of climate change. And remember what he did. He pulled the United States out of that Paris Agreement that nobody lived up to, that was supposed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, that are the cause of this horrible issue. Now, the Post reports that in 2017, when the orange vomit, right before he took office, 41% of Republicans told Gallup they believed warming had already begun. This year, only 29% said that. Oh, my God. Okay, here's another guy, Terry Wright. He's 61 years old. Here's what he says. He believes global warming temperatures are signs of the Earth entering into yet another climate phase. He said this, Terry, and by the way, he's a Republican who lives in Central Texas. It's what he said. Quote, "If you think in terms of time, geological time, there's a lot of fluctuation over millions and millions of years, and I think we have that now. I think what we're experiencing right now is a fluctuation. It's not as serious as an ice age, and it will go back to normal. It's like the stock exchange. It will go up and go down, and then it will go stable," end quote. This miserable son of a bitch is in for a real, well, he won't be in for the jolt because how old is he? 61. Well, he might be. He's still young enough. He might be around to watch his own family broil. Oh, well. Now, it is absolutely true that climate scientists have established that human activity is the cause of this greenhouse gas effect that's melting icebergs and increasing the number and the frequency of these horrendous cyclones, whether they're tornadoes or hurricanes. They're all cyclonic winds, so what difference does it make? Well, at the same time, other parts of the planet, that's going on in certain parts of the world. Other parts of the world are experiencing these horrific droughts. I mentioned the other day that in Madagascar, the southern half of Madagascar that is now in its 4th year of drought, And the global food programs, such as they are, have said that unless something happens in getting food to these people, they're going to experience famine of unprecedented proportions. People there now are eating cactus and stuff that humans normally don't eat because there's no food, because of climate change. But, I mean, 30 whatever percent of Republicans say, nah, that's just bullshit. At least 3 Pacific Island chains are being engulfed by sea level rise. And in Alaska, if you've been following that, coastal Alaska, indigenous people there are having to leave ancestral homes, sacred lands, even gravesites, because the ocean, the Arctic ocean is slowly encroaching on what were villages, what used to be landmass. So Native Americans in places like Alaska and Louisiana are having to vacate. And according to the Post, in August, the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change said humans have altered the environment at a pace that's, quote, unprecedented, related to any time in history. And that IPCC report from the UN detailed how catastrophic events lie ahead unless greenhouse gas emissions are cut. Well, so in Glasgow, all the muckety-mucks are there. They're trying to work out the wording in the final stages of this global conference. And both Biden and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson addressed delegates at the meeting, and both warned of dire consequences, yada, 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 and et cetera, and et cetera. According to that poll that I mentioned, ABC, Washington Post, Democrats are ready to listen to the warnings made at the climate conference. And like I mentioned, overwhelming majority, 95% of Democrats say climate change is serious, 75% say the problem is urgent, and 90% of Democrats say greenhouse gas regulation is needed to deal with the issue. On the other hand, 56% of Republicans, a majority, say climate change is not serious. Oh, for Christ's sake. About 4 in 10, about 40% see it as serious. And believe it or not, 19%, according to this poll, 19% of Republicans say it is urgent. And overall, 70% of Republicans, Christian fascists, say, well, okay, climate change is a long-term problem, but, we need more study before any action is taken. My. Now, the poll asks, let me show you, to tell you one of the questions. The poll asks this: do you think the federal government should or should not regulate the release of greenhouse gases from sources like power plants, cars, and factories in an effort to reduce global warming? 47% of Republicans say yes. 46% say no. And Americans who are impacted most by pollution and climate change, but contribute to them the least, are more likely to say it's a serious problem that must be dealt with. Yeah. The Americans who are most impacted by climate change and pollution, they're the ones who say, to a far greater percentage than those who are not impacted, that something has to be done. 93% of Black Americans say this issue is serious. 72% of Hispanics say this issue is serious. 60% of whites, thanks to the Christian fascists, say this issue is serious. And going back to that dumb shit from Texas, old Mr. Terry Wright, 61 years old. He said that initiatives that Biden has called for to lower greenhouse gases, electric vehicles and reduce the use of coal to generate energy, yada, yada, yada. This Texan, this 61-year-old Christian fascist said, well, that shit's going to destroy the lives of people who work in those industries, end quote, which shows the monumental ignorance of these savages, these Christian fascist savages, because the proper way to eliminate the jobs that are found in coal, oil, and gas mining is to replace those jobs working in renewable resource production. It's very simple. It requires some retraining, but okay. But 61-year-old Mr. Texas white man Republican, well, shit, he can't see that far ahead. Well, no, it's going to kill the jobs. And the Republican, old Mr. Wright from down there in Texas, he says, well, electric vehicles are needed because gas and other resources, his words, are finite. But there needs to be more gradual change. He said, quote, the things Biden is doing right now is going to destroy our economy even further, end quote. And then back to the woman in Brooklyn, Mrs. Gustav, a Democrat. She takes an opposite position. She says, quote, we need to be grown-ups about this and stop denying it. People have this ostrich movement, butt up, head in the ground, pretending climate change doesn't exist. And that's not going to keep you from dying. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com. And never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.